Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So I got this email from John earlier today, and John is in the middle of the supply chain industry, and he wanted to give me some of the insights that he is seeing from his position as far as where he is at in the distribution network. Now, I thought I would read this email to you guys and then maybe respond to it. This is what it has to say. It says, "Hey Simon, first off, I wanted to start by saying I'm a huge fan of the channel. I've recently gotten into the whole macro thing, and your podcast has been incredibly informative and easy to relate to. As much as I enjoy listening to other podcasts, the hosts are usually pretty well off, making them tough to compare myself to. I can't just buy 100 ounces of physical gold because, well, I just don't have that type of money right now. Anyways, I figured I would chime in with some info after your recent episode regarding the supply chain issues because I'm in a unique position to see it firsthand. For your reference, I'm a marine engineer. I work on large American-flagged deep-sea cargo ships around the world. Here's what I see. Unfortunately, transferring cargo from large ships to small ships is impossible if we're talking dry cargo. Dry cargo is mostly all the stuff shipped in 20-foot and 40-foot containers. Because of how container ships are built, there are no facilities in place to transfer containers ship to ship unless larger vessels docks, unloads, and then the boxes are loaded onto smaller ships while at the dock. Based on the predicament we have now, I do not believe this would fix things since we already have a massive backlog of ships. The container freight rate is insanely high right now, which leads me to believe there is a massive demand, obviously, while supply of container ships remains constant since it takes years to build a container ship. Not helping the fact is that Jones Act prevents the non-U.S. flagged ships from transporting cargo between U.S. ports. Unfortunately, the U.S. flagged fleet is absolutely dismal, with less and less ships every year. This would also make switching between large and small ships difficult, since once the containers hit U.S. soil, they need to be transported on a U.S. flagged ship. I've talked to many people in the industry to get to the root of the problem, and I've heard many possible answers. Firstly, the longshoremen, workers responsible for unloading the cargo, have apparently experienced a shortage of workers. The answer I got from one supervisor is that the unemployment is making it tough to find workers. This is tough for me to understand since longshoremen make great wages and are heavily unionized. Additionally, I've heard that there are a lack of truckers to get the cargo out of the yards. Although I can see this, I've never heard of ships being delayed because there wasn't room for their cargo. Additionally, the boxes aren't sitting in the terminals for weeks, only a matter of days. After all this research I've done, talking to people in the industry has led me to believe that there is no large conspiracy or singular issue in the supply chain. We're just importing more than ever, and our infrastructure cannot handle it. Our ports are aging, U.S. flagged fleet of ships is decreasing every year, and our demand for imported products is surging. While I am still working on my explanation for this debacle, feel free to share this with your listeners, viewers. While I've been reading press releases on this situation, I've gathered most of my knowledge from first and second-hand knowledge since it seems like issuers of these press releases are trying to save face." I think he misspelled it. I think he wrote "I'd you like." I think what he meant is "if you'd like." I can keep you updated on any tidbits of information that I hear. Keep up the great work, John. Thank you very much, John, for sending me this email. I really appreciate it because having firsthand insight like this is really where we need to be. Getting information from the mainstream media is like, you have to take that stuff with a grain of salt, because I really feel that mainstream media is more about guiding the perception, creating the narrative, than it is about informing the people. I mean, that's my feelings on it. Now, one of the things that I think is probably misunderstood, at least from transferring the cargo from big ships to the smaller ships, which from what he was saying is pretty much impossible to do, which I don't think is impossible to do. I think that the possibility of doing it in a profitable way might be limited, but the more you do it, the more likelihood that you're going to find the efficiencies in the idea of doing that. Right now, there is no concept for it. Like, there is no availability to transfer cargo from big ships to little ships and then distribute them out to the rest of the ports that the big ships can't go to. There's no like system for that. So it would have to be developed, and it would have to be developed in a way that would create it in some sort of efficiency and to be profitable from that. It doesn't exist now, but it could. All right, that's the difference in the idea on it. Like, it's not a way of fixing it. It's a way to create a situation in which that could possibly alleviate the problems that are happening now. Whether it goes back to normal or being profitable, that's a whole nother question within it. But it is, again, it is a way of being able to deal with it as far as the added cargo. Now, one of the other things that he said in here that I think, again, is a little misunderstood is that he said the container freight rate is insanely high right now, which leads me to believe that there is a massive demand. I don't believe that. I don't believe there is a massive demand. I think it is a false impression of demand due to a bullwhip effect. And this is something that I have talked about quite a bit, not only on this channel, but with a lot of people out there just in general when it comes to the distribution network, is that not everybody can see clearly everything that is happening within the supply chain. A lot of people within the supply chain can only deal with the next person down in the supply chain. They don't understand quite what's happening throughout the rest of the supply chain. Now, this is something that I have had to deal with quite a bit, and I really understand the idea of allocation. I have tried to order material from some of my vendors, and they say, yeah, I know you want 100 pieces, but I'm only going to send you 20 because that's all we can send you. We have to distribute out the material that we do have evenly amongst the other stores out there, and no, you can't buy it all. So knowing that if I order 100, I would only get 20. If I want 40, I would have to order 200 because it's being allocated. So you can see what can happen here with the orders that the managers, the distribution warehouses, the manufacturers, all these people see these orders coming in and think, man, this is a huge demand. But really, on the other side, the people who are ordering know that they're getting allocated, and they're putting in orders that are far bigger than what they would typically want, which is showing this massive demand on the other side, but it doesn't really exist. They're just being allocated, so they're putting in orders that are oversized so that they can try and get in what they truly need. Does that kind of make sense? So as these bean counters who are up here in the, up in the upper management and the manufacturing and the distribution network are looking at massive amounts of orders taking place, the reality is that they don't really need that much. It's almost into the sense of panic buying. They're buying more than what they need because they have been shorted for so long. If you do not have that product, you can't sell it, you can't make a profit. If you do not have that product, you can't put your product together to make a profit. So if you are coming up short and you have an order in place and you know that it's going to be allocated, then you're going to put in an order that's much bigger than what you truly want. And that is where I feel that this demand is like, this big demand is completely faked. That's what I'm feeling. But I really appreciate this email. The other information that you put in here is outstanding. I mean, the idea of flagships here in the United States that are pretty much, the United States ships are the only ones who can transfer from port to port within the United States. That makes a lot of sense on why that concept of shifting from big ships to little ships is just not possible, considering that the fleet isn't big enough to do that with. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but from what John is saying, that is the case. And if that is, then there's no way that could work, right? There just simply isn't a fleet big enough to make the idea of transferring from the big ships to the smaller ships to go to the ports that those smaller ships can fit to. It pretty much takes that idea out the window, right? It's like it's not even possible anymore. Yes, John, please continue to keep me informed on the things that you are seeing within the industry, and I will continue to put out the information that I am seeing within my portion of the industry. So this is how we do it, right, guys? We share information. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.